What if I told you that the moment your heart stops beating isn't actually when your consciousness ends, but rather when it begins the most extraordinary journey of your eternal existence? But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. For decades, we've been told that death is the ultimate unknown, a terrifying void where everything we are simply ceases to exist. Yet what if this fundamental belief about human mortality is completely wrong? What if the most documented psychic in American history discovered something so profound about those first moments after death that it could revolutionize how we understand consciousness itself? Edgar Cayce, known worldwide as the Sleeping Prophet, spent his lifetime unraveling one of humanity's greatest mysteries through over 14,000 meticulously documented psychic readings. Has this ever happened to you? Lying awake at night, wondering what really happens when we take our final breath? Cayce's extraordinary discoveries suggest that death isn't the ending we fear, but rather a precisely orchestrated transition that unfolds in exactly 15 minutes. Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to discover might surprise you more than anything you've ever learned about consciousness and the afterlife. Through his remarkable ability to enter deep trance states, Cayce accessed what he called the Akashic Records, a cosmic library containing the complete spiritual history of every soul's journey. From this universal database, he revealed that human consciousness doesn't simply vanish when the heart stops beating. Instead, it remains fully active and aware for precisely 15 minutes, during which the soul undergoes a profound transformation that determines its entire afterlife journey. But here's where it gets absolutely fascinating. These aren't random minutes of confusion or fear. Cayce discovered that every departing soul experiences 3 distinct and carefully orchestrated stages during this critical window. The recognition phase, the transition phase, and the orientation phase each present unique challenges and extraordinary opportunities that collectively determine how smoothly the soul moves from physical existence to the spiritual realm. What makes Cayce's findings even more remarkable is their consistency. Across decades of readings conducted in Virginia Beach, the Sleeping Prophet entered deep trance states with unwavering accuracy, providing detailed accounts of the death process that remained consistent throughout his entire career. These weren't vague spiritual platitudes or wishful thinking. They were precise, documented observations of consciousness in transition. Have you ever wondered why some people seem to die peacefully while others appear to struggle? Cayce's readings reveal that the quality of these 15 minutes isn't left to chance. The choices a soul makes during each of these 3 critical phases actually shape its entire next phase of existence. Even more intriguing, the level of spiritual preparation achieved during physical life directly influences how consciously and successfully a soul navigates this ultimate transition. What you're about to discover will challenge everything you thought you knew about death, consciousness, and what it truly means to be human. The Sleeping Prophet's revelations suggest that those 15 minutes after your heart stops beating might just be the most important quarter hour of your eternal journey. This is exactly the kind of profound content we explore here, documented spiritual findings that genuinely change perspectives. Subscribe so you don't miss these consciousness discoveries. Now, I want to go even deeper into this revelation and share something that completely transformed my understanding of consciousness itself. When Cayce accessed this cosmic library, he called the Akashic Records, he wasn't just tapping into random spiritual information. He was connecting to what he described as a universal database containing the complete spiritual history of every soul's journey through multiple lifetimes. Think of it as the ultimate behind-the-scenes record of human consciousness. Every decision, every transformation, every moment of growth meticulously documented across eternity. But here's the hidden truth that challenges everything we've been taught about dying. Those 15 crucial minutes aren't filled with the pain and terror we've always feared. Cayce's thousands of documented readings consistently revealed something absolutely extraordinary. Souls experience no physical pain or emotional terror during this critical window. Instead of the agonizing struggle we imagine, the departing consciousness enters a state of heightened awareness and clarity unlike anything experienced during physical life. This mindset shift alone has profound implications for how we approach our own mortality. Rather than facing the unknown with dread, we can understand that death represents the ultimate expansion of perception. The soul doesn't diminish or fade away. It actually becomes more aware, more conscious, more alive than ever before. Even more fascinating is what happens to the soul's ability to perceive its surroundings during this transformation. The newly separated consciousness maintains an extraordinary capacity to observe everything happening around its physical body with crystal clear precision. We're talking about hearing every conversation, understanding the emotions of everyone present, and witnessing all activities in the immediate environment with perfect perception that far exceeds anything possible in physical form. Imagine being able to see and hear everything with absolute clarity while simultaneously experiencing the most profound expansion of consciousness imaginable. Family members gathered around, medical personnel working, conversations happening. The departing soul witnesses it all with a level of awareness that transcends physical limitations. This isn't some vague spiritual concept, but a documented phenomenon that Cayce observed consistently across decades of readings. This revelation completely reframes our understanding of those final moments. Instead of viewing death as a loss of awareness, we begin to recognize it as the ultimate enhancement of perception. The soul doesn't lose its connection to the physical world. It gains an entirely new perspective that allows for deeper understanding and clearer observation than ever before. The impact of this knowledge extends far beyond simple comfort about dying. It suggests that consciousness operates on levels we're only beginning to comprehend, and that the journey from physical to spiritual existence is far more organized and purposeful than we ever imagined. These aren't random events, but carefully orchestrated stages of transformation that every soul experiences. What makes this even more profound is understanding that this heightened awareness serves a specific purpose during those critical 15 minutes. The soul's enhanced perception isn't just a beautiful side effect, it's an essential component of the choices and decisions that will shape its entire next phase of existence. Write in the comments, this changes everything, if this revelation about consciousness has shifted your perspective on what really happens when we transition to the other side. Now, what happens during those first precious minutes reveals something absolutely extraordinary about the nature of human consciousness. The moment the heart stops beating, the soul enters what Cayce called the recognition phase, a profound awakening that lasts approximately 3 to 5 minutes. This isn't a gradual realization or a confusing period of uncertainty. Instead, the consciousness undergoes an immediate and crystal-clear understanding that physical death has occurred while simultaneously discovering something that transforms everything we think we know about identity. Here's the revelation that completely shifts our perspective on what it means to be human. The essential self remains completely intact. During these opening minutes, the soul experiences the profound realization that while the physical body has ceased functioning, everything that makes you uniquely you continues without interruption. This recognition phase represents one of the most significant mindset transformations possible, the understanding that death is not an ending, but a transition to expanded awareness. But there's something even more fascinating happening behind the scenes during this initial stage. Cayce described what he called a silver cord of energy that continues to connect the soul to its physical body during these early minutes. Think of this energetic link as a bridge between two worlds. the physical realm you're leaving, and the spiritual realm you're entering. This connection serves a crucial purpose, allowing for potential return while gradually weakening as the transformation progresses. The impact of this silver cord extends far beyond simple attachment. It represents the soul's last connection to physical existence, providing a safety mechanism during those crucial early minutes. This isn't just spiritual poetry. Cayce documented this phenomenon consistently across thousands of readings, describing how this energetic bridge maintains stability during what could otherwise be a disorienting transition. What makes this discovery even more profound is understanding what remains unchanged throughout this entire process. Despite the dramatic shift from physical to spiritual existence, the soul's emotional and mental aspects continue completely unchanged. Every memory you've ever formed, every personality trait that makes you unique, every emotional capacity you've developed, all of these remain fully functional and intact. Hit like if this deep dive into consciousness resonated with your own spiritual curiosity and search for truth. This hidden truth challenges our deepest fears about death and identity. We're not talking about some vague continuation of consciousness, but the complete preservation of everything that makes you who you are, your sense of humor, your capacity for love, your unique way of thinking, your cherished memories. None of these disappear when the physical body stops functioning. The journey through this recognition phase reveals that individual identity doesn't dissolve into some universal consciousness. Instead, it becomes enhanced and expanded while maintaining its essential characteristics. This continuity ensures that the person you've become through years of experiences, relationships, and personal growth continues its evolution in the spiritual realm. Understanding this transformation has profound implications for how we view our current existence. Every decision we make, every relationship we nurture, every aspect of personal development we pursue becomes part of an eternal journey that extends far beyond physical limitations. The recognition phase simply marks the beginning of consciousness operating in a new and expanded dimension. What unfolds during these first precious minutes completely redefines our understanding of consciousness itself. Rather than experiencing the confusion or disorientation we might expect, the soul undergoes what Cayce described as the most profound awakening of consciousness possible. This isn't just a subtle shift in awareness. We're talking about an expansion of understanding that brings clarity far exceeding anything experienced during an entire physical lifetime. This transformation represents a complete mindset revolution. Imagine suddenly having access to levels of comprehension that make your most brilliant moments of insight seem like whispers compared to symphonies. The soul doesn't lose its capacity for understanding when it leaves the physical body. It gains access to dimensions of knowledge that were previously blocked by material limitations. But here's where this revelation becomes deeply personal and emotionally profound. During this awakening, newly departed souls often attempt to communicate with family members and friends present during the death process. They can perceive the emotions and thoughts of the living with extraordinary precision, understanding the grief and pain of those they're leaving behind, while simultaneously trying to convey their continued existence and well-being. Think about the impact of this hidden truth. While loved ones gather around feeling loss and sorrow, the departing soul is actually experiencing the most expanded state of consciousness possible, desperately trying to communicate that they're not only okay, but more alive and aware than ever before. This creates one of the most poignant behind-the-scenes realities of the death process, a communication gap between dimensions where love persists but connection requires new understanding. The journey through this recognition phase reveals something that completely challenges our assumptions about the emotional experience of dying. Remarkably, Cayce's thousands of documented readings revealed that souls typically experience profound relief and freedom rather than sadness or fear. The release from physical limitations brings an immediate sense of liberation that overshadows any concerns about leaving the material world behind. This emotional transformation is perhaps one of the most surprising revelations from Cayce's work. Instead of clinging to physical existence or feeling regret about departure, the soul experiences what can only be described as coming home after a long, challenging journey. The constraints of physical existence, pain, limitation, confusion, and separation simply fall away, replaced by an overwhelming sense of freedom and expansion. Understanding this shift in emotional experience has profound implications for how we process grief and loss. While those remaining in physical form naturally feel the pain of separation, the departed soul is simultaneously experiencing liberation and joy. This doesn't diminish the reality of grief, but it does provide a deeper context for understanding what's actually happening from both perspectives. The decisions and choices that emerge during this awakening phase begin to shape the soul's entire approach to what comes next. This newfound clarity and freedom create the perfect foundation for the conscious choice-making that will determine the soul's path forward. Now, something truly remarkable begins to unfold during this expanded state of consciousness that reveals the deeper purpose behind every experience we've ever had. The soul initiates what Cayce called a preliminary life review. But this isn't the judgmental examination many religions have described. Instead, it's an educational journey through the most recent lifetime, focusing specifically on understanding the primary lessons learned and the spiritual growth achieved during the completed incarnation. This behind-the-scenes process operates from a completely different mindset than we might expect. Rather than feeling shame or regret about mistakes, the soul approaches this review with the clarity and wisdom of expanded consciousness. Every challenge faced, every relationship experienced, every decision made is viewed through the lens of spiritual education and personal transformation. The impact of this perspective shift is profound. What seemed like failures or hardships during physical life are now understood as essential components of the soul's evolutionary journey. This preliminary review serves as preparation for the choices that lie ahead. By understanding what was accomplished and what growth occurred, the soul gains the context needed for making informed decisions about its next phase of existence. The hidden truth here is that nothing in life is random or meaningless. Every experience contributes to the soul's ongoing development in ways that become crystal clear during this review process. If this exploration resonated with you, you've found what this channel is all about. We dive deep into consciousness research and spiritual wisdom that can transform your understanding. Hit subscribe to continue this journey together. As this educational assessment continues, something extraordinary begins to happen around the 5-minute mark. The soul enters what Cayce identified as the transition phase, a stage lasting from approximately minute 5 to minute 10 that marks the beginning of an incredible expansion into realms of consciousness that existed all along, but remained invisible during physical incarnation. During this transformation, the soul's awareness begins to perceive multiple dimensions of reality that were always present, but completely hidden from physical perception. These aren't distant spiritual realms that exist somewhere else. They're layers of reality that surround and interpenetrate our physical world constantly. The revelation here is that we've been living within multiple dimensions simultaneously without ever realizing it. The journey into this expanded perception reveals one of the most fascinating aspects of consciousness itself. These spiritual realms become increasingly clear as the soul's awareness expands beyond the limitations that confined it during material existence. It's as if someone suddenly removed a blindfold you never knew you were wearing, revealing a magnificent landscape that was always there, but completely invisible to physical senses. This gradual unveiling of hidden dimensions serves a specific purpose in the soul's transition process. Rather than being overwhelmed by sudden exposure to infinite reality, consciousness expands systematically, allowing for proper orientation and understanding. The decisions that will soon need to be made require this broader perspective to ensure the soul chooses wisely for its continued evolution. What makes this phase particularly significant is understanding that these dimensions aren't foreign territories the soul is visiting for the first time. They represent the natural habitat of consciousness itself, the expanded reality that was always home, but temporarily forgotten during physical incarnation. As these expanded dimensions become increasingly clear to the transitioning soul, something deeply moving and profoundly comforting begins to unfold. Spiritual beings start to approach, and these aren't abstract entities or unfamiliar presences. We're talking about deceased family members, spiritual guides, and beings of pure light who arrive specifically to assist during this crucial phase of the journey from physical to spiritual existence. This revelation completely transforms our understanding of death as a lonely or frightening experience. The hidden truth behind this transition is that no soul travels this path alone. The moment consciousness begins expanding into these broader dimensions, a support system that has been waiting patiently in the background steps forward to provide comfort, guidance, and assistance through what could otherwise be an overwhelming transformation. But here's where this journey becomes intensely personal and deeply significant for every soul's future. During this encounter with spiritual helpers, the soul faces its first major choice point, a decision that will significantly impact the ease and success of the entire transition process. The soul must choose whether to immediately move forward with these spiritual guides or remain near the physical realm. This choice isn't arbitrary or rushed. The spiritual beings who approach understand the magnitude of this decision and provide the soul with the time and space needed to make an informed choice. However, the mindset and preparation that occurred during physical life plays a crucial role in how quickly and confidently this decision is made. What Cayce discovered through thousands of documented readings reveals a fascinating pattern that speaks to the profound impact of spiritual preparation during life. Souls who engaged in spiritual study, meditation, prayer, and service during their physical existence immediately recognize these helping spirits and joyfully embrace the transition. Their prior spiritual work creates a foundation of understanding that allows them to navigate this phase with remarkable confidence and grace. The transformation that occurs in these prepared souls is extraordinary to witness. Rather than hesitation or fear, they experience recognition and reunion. The spiritual practices they engaged in during life weren't just beneficial for their physical existence. They were actually preparation for this exact moment. Every meditation session, every act of service, every moment spent studying spiritual principles created familiarity with the expanded states of consciousness they now encounter. This behind-the-scenes preparation reveals one of the most practical aspects of Cayce's teachings. The decisions we make about spiritual development during our current physical life aren't just about becoming better people. They're about building the spiritual muscle memory that will serve us during the most important transition of our eternal existence. Unfortunately, not every soul approaches this critical choice point with the same level of preparation and spiritual awareness. Those who lived primarily material lives or harbor strong earthly attachments often experience a completely different response when faced with these spiritual guides. Instead of recognition and joy, they encounter resistance, an internal struggle that creates what Cayce termed spiritual confusion, making their transition significantly more difficult and prolonged. This resistance isn't born from malice or ignorance, but from a mindset that remained focused exclusively on physical existence throughout life. When consciousness that has been trained to value only material reality suddenly encounters spiritual beings and expanded dimensions, the shock can be overwhelming. The impact of this confusion extends far beyond simple discomfort. It can actually derail the entire transition process. Here's where the hidden truth about these 15 minutes becomes particularly crucial. Cayce documented numerous cases where souls chose to remain near the physical realm due to unfinished business, overwhelming grief about leaving loved ones, or simply an inability to release their attachment to material existence. What makes this decision so significant is that it occurs during the critical 15-minute window when the soul's ability to make conscious choices is at its absolute peak. If this shifted your perspective on death and consciousness, that like button is a simple way to acknowledge the connection we've built exploring these mysteries. The journey these resistant souls take reveals one of the most concerning aspects of the afterlife transition. This choice to remain earthbound during those precious minutes can trap consciousness between dimensions, creating a state where the soul becomes unable to progress spiritually or return to physical life. They exist in a kind of liminal space, neither fully in the spiritual realm nor able to re-enter physical existence. This behind-the-scenes reality of spiritual confusion demonstrates why the 15-minute period represents such an optimal window for conscious decision-making. During these moments, perception is clearest, understanding is most expanded, and the ability to choose wisely reaches its peak. The soul has access to both its physical life experiences and its expanding spiritual awareness, creating the perfect conditions for making informed decisions about its eternal future. The transformation that occurs during this window isn't just about moving from one state to another. It's about making conscious choices that will determine the soul's entire trajectory of spiritual development. Every moment of clarity during these 15 minutes is precious because it represents the soul's best opportunity to choose its path forward with full awareness and understanding. What makes this even more profound is understanding that the quality of decisions made during this critical window is directly influenced by the spiritual preparation that occurred during physical life. The mindset, practices, and values developed over years or decades of earthly existence suddenly become the foundation for the most important choices of the soul's eternal journey. The consequences of resisting this natural transition process during those precious 15 minutes reveal one of the most sobering hidden truths about the afterlife journey. Souls who make the decision to resist their spiritual guides and cling to earthly attachments risk becoming what Cayce documented as earthbound spirits. These beings find themselves trapped in a state that defies easy description, caught between physical and spiritual dimensions, unable to access higher realms of consciousness, yet equally unable to return to material existence. This behind-the-scenes reality represents one of the most challenging aspects of the death transition. These earthbound souls exist in a kind of spiritual limbo, watching the physical world continue around them while being cut off from the spiritual growth and evolution that awaits in higher dimensions. The impact of this choice extends far beyond the immediate aftermath of death. It can persist for extended periods, creating a state of spiritual stagnation that prevents the soul's natural progression. Understanding this possibility transforms our perspective on the importance of spiritual preparation during physical life. The decisions we make about our spiritual development aren't just about improving our current existence. They're about ensuring we have the wisdom and clarity needed to navigate the most crucial choices of our eternal journey. Now, around the 10-minute mark, something definitive occurs that marks the absolute point of no return in this extraordinary transformation. The soul enters what Cayce identified as the orientation phase, the final stage of this 15-minute window when the most critical decision of the entire process must be made. This phase represents the moment when the soul must make its definitive choice about where to focus its consciousness for the next phase of its eternal existence. What makes this phase particularly significant is what happens to the silver cord that has maintained the soul's connection to physical existence throughout the earlier stages. As the orientation phase begins, this energetic bridge between soul and body finally dissolves completely and permanently. This dissolution marks the absolute end of any possibility of returning to physical life and signals the beginning of full spiritual existence. The transformation that occurs during this final dissolution is both profound and irreversible. The last threads connecting consciousness to material reality are severed, freeing the soul to fully embrace its spiritual nature while simultaneously making the choice about its future path absolutely critical. Without the safety net of potential return to physical existence, every decision made during this orientation phase carries permanent consequences. This moment of complete separation reveals the true magnitude of the choices the soul faces. The journey ahead will be determined entirely by the decisions made during these final precious minutes, when consciousness exists in its most expanded and clear state, but must commit to a specific direction for continued evolution. During this pivotal orientation phase, something beautiful and deeply reassuring occurs that demonstrates the profound care built into the entire afterlife transition process. Spiritual teachers and guides step forward to welcome the soul, but their role extends far beyond simple greeting. These enlightened beings understand the magnitude of the decisions facing the newly transitioned consciousness and dedicate themselves to explaining the various options available for continued spiritual development. This behind-the-scenes guidance system reveals one of the most compassionate aspects of the death transition. No soul is left to navigate these crucial choices alone or without proper understanding. The teachers who approach during this phase possess comprehensive knowledge of spiritual laws and evolutionary pathways, ensuring that every soul receives the information needed to make truly informed decisions about their next phase of existence. What unfolds during this guidance process represents one of the most significant choice points in the entire journey of consciousness. The soul must now choose between two fundamentally different paths: immediate progression to higher spiritual dimensions for continued learning and service, or preparation for another physical incarnation to continue growth through material experience. This isn't a random assignment or arbitrary decision. It's a conscious choice that depends entirely on the soul's current level of spiritual development and understanding of universal laws. The hidden truth behind this choice reveals how perfectly orchestrated the entire system of spiritual evolution truly is. The decision isn't made in isolation, but emerges naturally from the soul's own level of awareness and readiness. Those who have achieved greater spiritual understanding during their physical incarnation find themselves naturally drawn toward higher dimensions where they can engage in advanced learning and service to other souls. This transformation in perspective represents a complete mindset shift from how we typically think about spiritual advancement. Rather than being promoted or assigned to different levels, souls actually self-select based on their genuine capacity and inclination. The spiritual development achieved during physical life directly influences not only the available options, but also the soul's natural gravitational pull toward specific paths of continued evolution. More developed souls experience an almost magnetic attraction toward higher dimensions of service and learning. They recognize these realms as natural extensions of the spiritual work they began during physical incarnation. Their consciousness has expanded to the point where continued service and advanced spiritual study represent the most fulfilling and appropriate next steps in their eternal journey. Conversely, souls who require additional physical experiences for continued growth find themselves naturally inclined toward reincarnation. This isn't a punishment or failure, but rather a wise recognition that certain lessons and developments can only occur through direct material experience. The impact of this understanding completely reframes reincarnation from a repetitive cycle to a conscious choice for optimal spiritual development. The journey through this choice-making process reveals the profound wisdom embedded in the entire system of consciousness evolution, where every soul receives exactly the guidance and opportunities needed for their individual path of growth. Write in the comments, "Perfect guidance, if." This revelation about the caring guidance system during the orientation phase has given you comfort about the afterlife transition process. The fascinating aspect of this choice-making process is how effortlessly it unfolds for souls who invested in their spiritual development during physical life. Those who cultivated strong spiritual awareness through meditation, study, and service don't struggle with these decisions. They naturally gravitate toward higher dimensions of consciousness with the same ease that water flows downhill. Their transformation during the orientation phase represents the culmination of years or decades of spiritual preparation, where every moment of conscious development suddenly pays extraordinary dividends. This natural progression reveals the hidden truth about how spiritual growth during physical incarnation serves as direct preparation for this exact moment. These souls approach the transition with a completely different mindset than those who lived purely material lives. Instead of viewing death as an ending or loss, they recognize it as graduation to expanded states of awareness that they've been unconsciously preparing for throughout their entire physical existence. What makes this progression even more remarkable is understanding what actually happens to consciousness during this transition. Contrary to common fears about awareness diminishing or disappearing after death, Cayce's documented findings revealed something absolutely extraordinary. Consciousness doesn't shrink or fade, it expands dramatically beyond anything imaginable during physical life. Souls report perceiving multiple dimensions simultaneously, while understanding universal principles with perfect clarity and feeling connected to all life throughout the cosmos. This expansion represents perhaps the most profound transformation possible for consciousness itself. The journey from the limited perception of physical existence to this unlimited awareness creates a completely new relationship with reality. Rather than losing their sense of self, souls discover their true identity as eternal beings temporarily having physical experiences, connected to an infinite web of consciousness that encompasses all existence. The impact of this expanded awareness extends far beyond personal transformation. Souls operating in these higher dimensions report experiencing universal love, perfect understanding of cosmic laws, and immediate access to knowledge that was completely blocked during material incarnation. They can perceive the interconnectedness of all life while simultaneously maintaining their individual identity and personal relationships. This behind-the-scenes reality of consciousness expansion explains why spiritual preparation during current life becomes so crucial for navigating these 15 minutes. How individuals choose to develop spiritually during their lifetime directly influences their ability to embrace and integrate this dramatic expansion of awareness. Those who practiced meditation, studied spiritual principles, and dedicated themselves to serving others approach this transition with the spiritual muscle memory needed to handle such profound transformation. The decisions these prepared souls make during their 15-minute window flow naturally from the foundation they built during physical life, creating a seamless progression from earthly spiritual practice to expanded cosmic awareness. The profound transformation that occurs during these 15 minutes completely redefines everything we've been taught to believe about death itself. Through thousands of documented readings, Cayce revealed that death isn't the terrifying unknown we've been conditioned to fear, but rather the most natural and beautiful transition possible for human consciousness. His most poetic description compared it to taking off worn-out clothing and putting on beautiful garments of light, a metaphor that captures the liberating and uplifting nature of this incredible change. This shift in perspective has profound implications for how we approach our own mortality and process the grief of losing loved ones. When we understand death as a positive transformation rather than a tragic ending, our entire relationship with the dying process changes. The fear that has haunted humanity for millennia begins to dissolve, replaced by an understanding that this transition represents expansion, freedom, and advancement, rather than loss or termination. What makes this transformation even more beautiful is the atmosphere that surrounds it during those crucial 15 minutes. The presence of spiritual guides and deceased loved ones creates an environment of welcome and celebration rather than the loss and separation we typically associate with death. This supportive community of souls helps the transitioning consciousness understand that death represents reunion and advancement in the truest sense, a return to a larger family that has been waiting patiently for this moment of reconnection. This hidden truth about the celebratory nature of death reveals one of the most comforting aspects of Cayce's findings. Behind the scenes of what appears to be an ending from our physical perspective, there's actually a joyful homecoming occurring. The soul isn't departing alone into an unknown void, but arriving at a gathering of beloved souls who understand the magnitude of what has been accomplished during physical incarnation. Now here's what makes this revelation even more extraordinary and personally meaningful. Throughout this entire transformation, souls maintain their individual personalities and cherished memories while simultaneously gaining access to universal knowledge that was previously blocked during physical incarnation. This means the essential you, your sense of humor, your capacity for love, your unique way of thinking, all the relationships and experiences that shaped who you became, none of this disappears or gets absorbed into some universal consciousness. Instead, you become more authentically yourself than ever before. The personality traits that made you unique during physical life become enhanced and clarified, while the limitations and confusions that clouded your understanding during material existence simply fall away. The journey through these 15 minutes doesn't diminish individual identity, but rather reveals it in its purest and most expanded form. This enhancement of personality combined with access to universal wisdom creates an extraordinary state of being, where souls report feeling more like themselves than they ever did during physical incarnation, while simultaneously understanding cosmic principles and universal laws with perfect clarity. Write in the comments, "More myself than ever," if this revelation about maintaining and enhancing your individual identity after death has given you a new understanding of what the afterlife experience truly offers. This enhancement of individual identity while accessing universal wisdom reveals something crucial about how we can influence our own death experience right now, during our current physical existence. The quality of a person's mental and emotional state at the moment of death significantly influences how smoothly and joyfully they navigate through all three stages of this transition. Those who approach their final breath with love, gratitude, and spiritual awareness in their hearts move through the recognition, transition, and orientation phases with remarkable grace and ease. This hidden truth about the impact of our emotional and mental state at death transforms how we think about preparing for this ultimate journey. The mindset we cultivate during life doesn't just affect our daily experience. It becomes the foundation for how we'll handle the most important 15 minutes of our eternal existence. Every moment we choose love over fear, gratitude over resentment, and spiritual awareness over material obsession, we're actually training ourselves for conscious dying. What makes this preparation even more powerful is understanding what Cayce called spiritual momentum, the accumulated energy created through regular meditation, prayer, and service to others during physical life. These practices don't just benefit us in the present moment, they build spiritual strength that carries the soul gracefully through the death transition like a powerful current supporting a swimmer. This behind-the-scenes spiritual momentum explains why souls who dedicated themselves to spiritual practices during life navigate their 15-minute transition with such confidence and joy. Every meditation session, every moment of selfless service, every prayer offered with sincere intention contributes to this spiritual momentum that becomes invaluable during the most crucial moments of the soul's journey. The transformation that occurs when souls approach death with this kind of preparation reveals one of the most profound aspects of Cayce's findings. These 15 minutes after death aren't a time of judgment, punishment, or fearful accounting of past mistakes. Instead, they represent an incredible opportunity for spiritual growth and conscious decision-making that offers the soul maximum potential for positive spiritual advancement. This shift in understanding completely reframes death from something to dread into something to prepare for with anticipation and wisdom. The journey through these 15 minutes becomes a graduation ceremony rather than a final exam, a celebration of growth rather than a judgment of worthiness. Every choice made during this critical window serves the soul's continued evolution and expansion. The decisions that emerge during this period flow naturally from the spiritual foundation built during physical life, creating a seamless progression from earthly preparation to cosmic opportunity. The impact of understanding this connection between current spiritual practices and future transition experience provides practical motivation for engaging in conscious spiritual development right now. This understanding of death as opportunity, rather than ending, connects to one of Cayce's most beautiful and profound revelations about the true nature of this transition. In one of his most moving readings, he described death not as a departure or loss, but as returning home after a long journey. The soul, in those precious 15 minutes, recognizes its true nature as an eternal being of light and love that was temporarily having a physical experience rather than a physical being occasionally having spiritual moments. This shift in perspective completely transforms our relationship with mortality itself. The journey we call life becomes understood as a temporary assignment, a learning expedition into physical reality, while our true home exists in the expanded dimensions of spiritual consciousness. The impact of this realization during those critical minutes brings profound relief and joy as the soul remembers what it temporarily forgot during its material incarnation. What makes this homecoming even more extraordinary is understanding how consciousness begins preparing for this transition long before the physical heart stops beating. Cayce documented that souls approaching death often receive what he called preparatory visions, weeks or even months before their actual transition. These manifestations include visits from deceased relatives, prophetic dreams, and sudden spiritual insights that help prepare consciousness for the upcoming transformation. This behind-the-scenes preparation process reveals the incredible care and intelligence built into the entire system of consciousness evolution. Rather than facing this transition without warning, many souls receive gentle introduction to the expanded awareness they'll soon experience fully. These preparatory experiences serve as practice sessions, allowing consciousness to gradually adjust to operating beyond physical limitations. The most remarkable aspect of this preparation becomes evident in what Cayce called conscious dying, a phenomenon achieved by spiritually advanced souls who maintain full awareness throughout the entire death process. These individuals don't just passively experience the three stages, but actively participate in making deliberate choices at each phase, with complete understanding of the consequences and opportunities involved. These conscious dying experiences reveal something absolutely extraordinary about the potential for human awareness during this transition. Advanced souls report that their 15 minutes feel like hours of the most profound spiritual education imaginable. They describe receiving detailed instruction about universal laws, understanding their life's true purpose with perfect clarity, and gaining comprehensive guidance about their next phase of existence. This level of conscious participation in the death process represents the ultimate transformation of human relationship with mortality. Instead of something that happens to us, death becomes something we consciously navigate and direct. The decisions made during conscious dying flow from complete awareness rather than confusion or fear, creating optimal conditions for spiritual advancement. This vision of conscious dying as humanity's spiritual destiny reveals just how profound and purposeful our current existence truly is. Every moment of spiritual growth we achieve during this lifetime contributes not only to our own conscious transition, but to the collective awakening of human consciousness itself. When we understand death as the ultimate spiritual achievement rather than our greatest fear, we begin living with a completely different sense of purpose and preparation. The knowledge Cayce shared through his documented readings offers us a roadmap for navigating both life and death with wisdom, confidence, and joy. These aren't just comforting stories or wishful thinking. They represent consistent, documented observations of consciousness in transition that can transform how we approach our spiritual development right now. If this journey through the 15 minutes after death has opened your mind to new possibilities about consciousness and existence, you've found exactly the kind of content this channel is dedicated to exploring. We dive deep into documented spiritual phenomena, ancient wisdom, and consciousness research that can actually transform how you understand reality itself. Consider subscribing so we can continue exploring these profound mysteries together. The conversation we've shared here feels like something that was meant to happen, a connection between souls who are ready to explore the deeper truths about existence and consciousness. If you feel that same sense of connection and purpose, leave a comment saying, "This message was meant for me, so I know." You stayed with us through this entire exploration. The like button represents more than just algorithm support. It's a way of acknowledging the bond we've created through sharing these profound insights about the nature of consciousness and the beautiful transition that awaits us all. There's a video right here that complements this topic perfectly, exploring how we can begin experiencing these expanded states of consciousness right now during our physical existence. Click and continue with me over there, where we'll discover practical ways to prepare for conscious dying while enhancing your current spiritual awareness. The journey into consciousness doesn't end here. It's just beginning.